Check Complete, a referee podcast, is an educational resource for referees by referees, designed to connect and develop soccer officials of all ages and skill levels to better serve the game both on and off the field. It's time for episode 17 of the Check Complete podcast. Your host Gordie here, alongside our first ever double co-host. This is exciting.
Happy to be here.
Yes. So we have Zach and Tatum Richter with us today, and we are so thrilled. I say we. It's not like I have multiple personalities, but at least I want to admit to. It's our whole Check Complete team. Are so excited to have you guys here with us today. Thank you so much for taking time to do this.
Well, thanks for having us.
Yeah, this is going to be great. So we got some fun stuff planned for you for episode 17. We'd love to hear about what you think about the episode and then ideas for future ones, but we'll get to that at the end. For starters, let's just dive into your guys' story. Who are you? And then we'll get into referee-specific stuff. But who are you? I already given your names away. What else do you want to voluntarily share with the Check Complete podcast audience?
Would you like to go first?
Sure. So I started refereeing in 2010. I think I was 11 or something like that. And I started out in the little 4 or 5 year olds, and then kind of worked my way up in Heartland once I was old enough, and then kind of went from there. Then I went to college at Illinois State as a student athlete with golf, and once I wasn't playing anymore, I got into college soccer and have spent the last 2 years refereeing college soccer.
Wonderful. So outside of soccer, what do you do with your life?
I'm an accountant, auditor, so stay very busy with that.
I believe that. Very good. Okay, we'll come back to that. We'll come back to a little about your student athlete career as well, because I have questions that I didn't warn you about, but that are coming to mind. Okay. So, all right. So Zach, who are you, and tell us about yourself, I guess.
Yeah, so I just moved here from Chicago about 3-4 months ago. Tatum and I got married this past summer, so that was pretty exciting. And I've been refereeing since 2010. So same year as her, just a little bit older. And I'm a teacher outside of soccer, and I've been doing college since 2015, I believe.
Okay.
And it's been kind of nice transferring from the Chicago realm of soccer over to the Kansas City, just because of the fact I have so many friends here already, and just kind of building into this new community of soccer. It's been fantastic so far.
Well, on behalf of the whole Kansas City community, we're thrilled to have you back and you here. It's been just wonderful to have you guys part of the group, and it's been great opportunities to connect with people that are fun to work with, but to learn from each other, especially when folks work in other areas. I'm sure maybe if you're refereeing in different parts of the country and you have a chance to work with someone that you don't normally get to, or comes from a different part of the States, you kind of pick up and learn different things. So I think that's really fun for us. So cool. So you already talked a little bit about, you guys already kind of talked about your referee journey. Why did you get started? Let's go to that question. Why refereeing?
So because I was a big golfer, I didn't have a lot of time. That was pretty much my full-time job, but I was very active playing soccer when I was younger, and I retired before high school to take golf a little bit more seriously, but I did it as a side job, and it was perfect, and I just loved it. I loved the flexibility, so I could go and work in the morning and then go out and practice in the afternoons on the weekends, and I loved it. Even though I wasn't playing soccer anymore, it was a way for me to still be around the game that I love.
Yeah, absolutely. Very cool. Zach?
I was a goalkeeper growing up. Played all over the place, really. Played 1 year, 2 years collegiately. I fractured my back when I was 16, 17 years old, and that kind of put a halt on some of my aspirations going forward as a soccer player. But realistically, I was probably one of those players that referees didn't like to deal with. So I feel like that's kind of helped my referee career in a sense, just because I feel like I can empathize with those players who come from my adverse background of getting into referees and kind of really letting them know how I feel about certain situations. But that's really why I got started into it, because I felt like I could do it better.
Yeah.
And I learned very quickly that I necessarily couldn't.
Yeah.
So it took a little bit of learning and growing and making several mistakes along the way, and I still make several every single day. But I feel like players who have that passion for the game are referees in the making.
Yes.
And so just kind of having players come from that perspective and just like use what their talents already are and turn it into actually understanding the laws of the game, I think is awesome.
I love that you mentioned that, because that's been an ongoing conversation about when we work with local clubs, coaches, high schools, colleges, to say, hey, help us identify referees. Oftentimes, I think folks go, we want the really mild-mannered people, that kind of stuff. So, I mean, there's something to being composed, right? But I think we would all agree, and maybe you too, that the personality piece is so essential to be successful. And those players, at least in my estimation, have that. Even if they are screaming at you, they have that personality. They're not afraid to be vocal, and they're passionate. And I think that translates into the kind of person we're looking for. Yeah. If that's fair, if that's kind of what you were saying.
Absolutely. I mean, like, so you can have that high temper or very passionate person, kind of like myself, who comes into the game and they have those tools to actually know how to diffuse those players, because in their head they were looking for the referee to say those words to them when they were hot. And if you're not necessarily in that same realm, like, I mean, referees probably are the people who need the biggest personality on the field in order to deal with those players and player management. But like ARs, you need to have someone who actually understands the game and can assist the referees. So it's not like we just need a one type fits all referee player, whatever the case may be, but someone who can like fit into certain roles within a crew.
Yeah, absolutely. Such good stuff. Before we get to a little bit more about some of the roles that you found yourself in different capacities of officiating, I want to come back to your playing experience in golf. So a very different sport than soccer. But are there takeaways, and I probably should have warned you this question was coming, but to be fair, I didn't know it was coming until you started talking a few minutes ago. So it just blew up in my brain. But, is there takeaways from being a college athlete that have helped you be successful as a referee in any way?
And refereeing, it's teamwork, the people that you meet. Golf, I'm playing with different people every day. And in tournaments, you're meeting new people and on the road. And I feel like that's kind of been the same with refereeing. You're on the road, you go into different tournaments, you're meeting people from different states, and you're becoming really good friends with these people and building those connections and learning from each other. Yeah,
adapting and building trust, all of that. Yeah, absolutely. I think golf, to me, seems to be like one of those that is such a mental aspect to the game, right?
Yeah.
So what were some of those things for you as a golfer? This is kind of deviating to a golf podcast. Who knew? But what were some of those things for you that helped you kind of lock back in if you felt like things were difficult? Is there like a mental game that you tried to play with yourself, or?
So I really try not to think as much on the golf course.
Sure.
If I hit a bad shot, hey, it happens. Just like in refereeing, you miss a call or you call something that may or may not have been a foul. You're like, oh, okay, well, brush it off, because you can't let it affect you or else you're going to keep snowballing. Same way in golf, if you hit a bad shot and you let it bother you, you're probably going to shoot a 5, 6, 7, maybe even a snowman, 8 on a hole. So just being able to stay present and being able to move on from mistakes.
Yeah, absolutely. That's where I was going with that question. So that coming from a mile away, that's wonderful. Staying present, not letting that one moment derail what's the rest of your job for the day. Yeah. That's awesome.
And just enjoying it. I mean, who else gets to do what we do? Like on the golf course, you get to see all these different atmospheres, and just like soccer, different facilities, different stadiums. I mean, that's the coolest part. I mean, who else gets to travel and get to see all those from a different perspective? Yeah, absolutely. I guess that kind of goes into my other question that we sort of talked about, was not just how you got started, why you got started, but why you stay in it. What has been the contributing factors for you guys for why you stay in it? For me, it's the people. I mean, growing up, shout out to my Kansas Rough fam, but they've been amazing. And I mean, I was so bummed when I went to school and they were still in town, and I was like, I want to go back and Rough, and I just wasn't able to. But every time I came back, even if it was like during the winter time or during the summer, I would find a way to either hang out with them and catch up or go do like little leagues on the side stuff. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for me, it's obviously the people, right? Yeah. I fell in love with one of them. So, no, I mean, like, I think as a referee, you go through all these games, and eventually the games start to, like, blur into one gigantic season, right? But one thing I do with every single one of my crews is I always take a crew photo.
Yeah.
And at the end of every season, I kind of swipe through, and it's kind of just like a walk back through time of like who I got to work with. And it's even cooler for me too, like when we worked with people or we worked together and we're like, oh, like we work with that person and they're in the MLS. Or like, I was supposed to work with Corey Rockwell this past weekend at KU, and it was like right before he got announced as MLS AR of the Year, and I was really excited to work with him, but then he got taken off the game because he had to go do a pro match.
Right.
So like even like getting to work with those types of people who are still very much involved at the game at some of the highest levels in the United States, I mean, it's kind of a really cool experience.
Oh,
and so,
yeah.
and so like it really doesn't matter where you go or who you see. It's just soaking in that friendships and building in that relationships with
Yeah.
everybody across the country is fantastic.
Yeah, and everybody's got their own story, and as you get to be a part of each other's story, I think that's a really beautiful thing.
Yeah.
I mean, you could probably find that in other places, but it's, at least for us, and I'll lump myself into that,
Yeah.
it's unique,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
It's a really beautiful thing. So maybe that helps dull the pain of some of the stupidity we see out there. So, well, that's wonderful, guys. So let's talk a little bit about your referee journey. So let's get into that, and then we can talk maybe some memorable moments.
Yeah.
So the path has kind of been as everyone's goes, and we try to talk about that. I know you guys talk about that with younger referees that have aspirations. The path looks different for everybody. So your paths have, even though you've collided, they've looked different, right?
Yeah.
So what has been some of the hallmark characteristics of your referee journey, your path?
I mean, for me, it's like I started off doing like your local youth leagues. I got certified. I was doing recreational soccer. They weren't even like affiliated U.S. soccer games. They were just part district games back home in Chicago. And then from there, I got connected with another assigner. And I mean, you start moving up, you start doing higher level games. And for me, I was always like, I want that bigger game. I want that age group. And they were always telling me like, hey, you gotta slow down. Like at the age that you're at, you can't referee unless you're 2 years older than that group
Okay.
or whatnot. So we had some rules set up, but I didn't like those rules. I always wanted to keep going. And eventually, like I got to the point where I kind of figured out kind of the track that I felt comfortable with per se as a referee. And so that for me, that's just being in the middle.
Yeah.
And I'm not necessarily the best, I'm not necessarily the worst, but it's something I feel comfortable in, I feel confident in. You hand me a flag and I don't know what to do. So it's one of those situations, but you know what, can I hold a flag? Absolutely. Do I feel comfortable? Absolutely not. I'm scared. I have no clue which way the direction the throw is supposed to be going because I'm so focused on offside because I don't want to mess it up. But then like really, as for me personally, like figuring out U.S. soccer versus college, it takes two totally different referees. It's the same game.
Yeah.
It's virtually the same rules, but it's totally different man management and different awareness as to what you're doing as a referee within that game. And I think for me, getting her involved in that was something I was really excited about because when I met her, she wasn't necessarily doing that stuff yet. And one of the first games she ever did was actually Loyola versus Northwestern University in Chicago. It was first ever college game.
Wow.
And it's the assigner had a open slot, and I called him and I said, "Hey, I'm on this game. My girlfriend's coming into town. She's certified. Can we get her on?" I don't know. I go, "She'll be fine." We go to the stadium. There's thousands of people. Like it's an absolute packed stadium. It's a Chicago crosstown rival. It's early in the season, so you have all of Northwestern, you have all of Loyola coming together. It's a big deal. And then the assigner shows up, Steve. And this is the first time Steve and Tatum have ever met. And Steve sat behind her the entire first half and just watched her.
What was your role on the crew?
I was AR2.
You were air. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. And she absolutely killed it. And for me, just like as someone who was like really excited about getting her involved in something I was passionate about, which is the college game. Because ultimately, like when I travel, she either is at home or she gets to travel with me. And so getting her involved with that as much as possible and kind of making that a family thing is incredible because those long nights traveling or having to stay in multiple hotels throughout a weekend, it becomes a little bit nicer when you have someone that you care about with you.
Sure.
As opposed to doing a 90-minute game, having people scream at you, and then you're like, all right, it's 9:30, I'm going to bed. Like
Yeah, you're eating a pizza over the sink like
exactly.
a rat.
Exactly. So like having her like see that moment and just like from the outside, just it was a pretty happy moment for me.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I was very happy and grateful to have that opportunity. And I mean, it's really cool to be able to do something that we both love together.
Yeah, no doubt. So that's probably been some of the more memorable moments along the way, right?
Yeah,
To have
absolutely.
those opportunities.
Yeah.
That's really neat. So I want to talk, I'll kind of hone in a little bit more on what you said about the differences between U.S. soccer and college. That's not something we initially planned to discuss, but I think that's something to highlight because you've seen a lot of that. Your guys, I know it's always weird to brag about yourselves, but share a little bit about your resume. You guys are working actively now in some college conferences. What conferences are you guys in?
So we're both in the Big 10 and the Big 12. And then we're also in some like Summit, Horizon, a couple other Division I conferences where we have to travel for it, as well as local MIAA and KC.
The KCAC, Heart of America, the NAIA conference.
I'm still learning.
Junior college. I know. That's I'm sure everybody's got their acronyms.
Yes.
It's hard to keep. So the local conferences and things too. Okay, so very good. And then quite a bit of experience on the U.S. soccer side as well. I know you went to youth nationals. How many times?
I've been invited 4 times. I went 3 times.
Okay, gotcha. And then you also do some additional work in a different capacity with referees. Can you talk about that with the assigning?
Yeah, so I'm an assigner. So I have roughly 120 high school teams, I guess you could say, back home that I assign over the course of 35-ish high schools, so between their different levels and whatnot. And then I have 4 or 5, I lose count to be honest with you. USSF clubs, and then I'm also the assigner for the UPSL Midwest Division.
Okay.
So I kind of see refereeing from a lot of different angles.
Yeah.
And then I used to be a USSF instructor, and then because of everything that's kind of transpired, I've kind of lost touch of that.
Sure.
But it's really cool to kind of see the full circle of refereeing, I guess, as a whole, because I think as referees we can get very like tunnel vision, I guess would be the way to say it, and we're like, hey, why aren't we getting this assignment? Why are we getting this assignment? Why is that person getting an assignment and I'm not? And there's a lot of like calculations that go behind it. It's not just like, hey, I'm going to click a button, put you in here. You kind of have to think about the teams and their comfortability level. Like if I were to go give Tatum a UPSL whistle, she would probably tell me to sleep on the couch. So like that's just not her comfortability thing. So it's like one of those things. You have to know the referee. So for me, it's kind of like take me out of like the actual like refereeing stance and put me in a different capacity. To actually learn that referee as a referee and a person and what they're capable or what they're comfortable with. Because obviously I don't want to put any referee in a situation where they're not going to be comfortable or have success.
Right.
Because with today's day and age, referee retention rate right now is a very difficult thing. And I think assigners all over the country are really feeling that. Locally here for you guys, your Acacia stuff, I see emails come out consistently about how their short referees are having to cancel games. And a lot of that's just because of referee retention.
Yes.
And so...
and many factors to the retention piece, like you said. It isn't just, I think everybody hears, it's just referee abuse. That's a factor.
Yes, absolutely.
That is a factor, but I think what you're describing is super important.
Yeah.
And just the intensely relational piece of that, that you have to know these people.
Right.
You have to know where they are going to thrive. And anyway, keep going. That's fantastic.
No, that's kind of what I do.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. She helps me with it. Like we'll be driving to a college game and she'll be on my computer doing arbiter and game officials and all that good stuff. So she's learned how to assign and do all that stuff too. And I do a lot of this partnership with my dad, who's back home in Chicago. So he's got kind of feet on the ground there as well. Oh yeah. But then I also have like indoor facilities all over the country that I assign for. So it's kind of like opened me up to a whole big community of stuff from a whole different perspective. And it's really given me a respect to what assigners have to go through on a daily basis. Because it's not an easy job. It's fun at times, but there's certainly a lot of times where I'm just on the phone being like, what is going on right now?
Yeah, right.
And you're just like, okay. So you manage the game from a different perspective as an assigner.
Sure. And I think that understanding the other's perspectives is such a key concept that we've discussed that on the podcast in different capacities. But I think that's the problem not to make it a bigger issue than it is, but that's kind of our cultural problem. We have an inability to understand, to be empathetic, to see what the other person's experiencing.
Yeah.
I think in the referee community that I don't do nearly as much as signing as you, but had a game that got moved from Tuesday to Wednesday this week, and so I emailed the crew, hey, just let you know, or it came through that he had been removed, the individual had been removed. And he sends me an email and he's like, hey, why'd you take me off the game on Tuesday? And I've been there before where you see that and you go, oh, what did I do? We immediately just assume, what did I do? How did I screw it up? And I don't know if he assumed that or not, because his email didn't give it, and I'm not reading into it much. He just said, hey, what happened? And it was as simple as the game got moved and you already had a game.
Yeah.
That's all it was.
Right.
But I think sometimes we, from the referee side, we go, oh, what did I do? Did they, I don't know. Did they see me at the Chinese buffet feeding my face? I don't know. But, that's interesting, just gaining that perspective and seeing it. Does that impact how you referee, or how does that, it's just gaining perspective more than anything?
I think it really what it does is it gives me understanding of how to handle situations with assigners. Because obviously, especially in the college game, turning back a game is a big no-no, especially depending on the signer. Just because there's so many games and, in certain positions, it's harder to fill. If you're having to fly to a match and something happens with your flight or your car or something, like I was going to Oklahoma State the other day and I literally got in my car and my car wouldn't start. And I was like, crap. What do I do? Yeah. And so a million things start rushing through my head. And one of the first things I do is I just text the assigner. Be like, hey, this is what's going on. Give me 30 minutes. I'll update you. But I just want to let you know so that way it doesn't get past that point. Yes. And I think as an assigner, I appreciate that more than having someone call me and be like, I'm not going to make it. And now it's really deadline of who can I find, who can I replace them with? And I think that's the frustrating part as an assigner, is when the referee isn't super communicative with the assigner and open. Or on the flip side, they give back a game last minute. And then you see on social media that they've taken another assignment. And then it's just ooh, right. Yikes. So it's just that type of perspective. And I think with her too, communicating with some of the assigners that I've worked with, and I've passed on to her name and gotten her into some bigger conferences. When she had that Loyola game, one of the first things she said to the assigners, I'm scared of you. And he just laughed. He's like, why? And he's like, as long as you don't lie, you don't BS me, we're okay. Right. Don't mess up the game, and that's even better. It's
cherry on top. Just that communication piece, that's huge. That's huge. Very good. Well, let me backtrack slightly. We talked a little bit about referee journey. We're going to get to maybe if there's more memorable moments and things, but let's talk about maybe potentially the most memorable experience outside of the game. You guys meeting and everything happening from there. So we all want to know. We all want to know the story of how you guys got together.
Well, we met at youth regionals in Saginaw, Michigan, and he was in my classroom session that they have in the evenings at the end of the day. And I will always remember, he was the guy in the back of the classroom with his feet up on the desk, hands behind his head, and I'm like, one of those people. And I was sitting with some of my friends a couple rows up, and he was really good buddies with the instructor, and he got called on real quick, and I was like, oh my gosh. And so then the next day, I was at lunch, and I just saw an empty table, and so I was like, hey, do you mind if I sit here? So I sat with this other gentleman, and started talking to him, and he's like, oh yeah, I'm here with my son. And then in comes Zachary, and he's like, yes, this is my son. I was like, oh, this guy. And Zach's not hard to miss either. He's 6'9", so a giant. And then ever since that moment in the tent, he was always like, you're not smiling, smile. And I'm like, this dude is so annoying. Long story short, he ended up getting selected for nationals, which was in Overland Park at Shields Complex. And I was a support official and ended up driving referees to the field in the afternoon. And he always happened to be in my car. Still didn't think anything of it, but we kept in touch after that. October, he told me he liked me. I friend zoned him. And then the world shut down with COVID, and I couldn't use the excuse that I was busy with golf anymore. So I was like, fine, I'll finally hang out with this dude just to, say I tried. And I guess here we are.
And here you are. Wow.
Yeah.
So this is a great time to segue that we will be starting a referee dating component to the pod. No, that's awesome. So then the rest, as they say, is
history.
It's history.
It is. It is.
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah. So I like going on that. Like, don't be shut down to friendships and even relationships at regional events and national events. Like, you can go and you can work at these events, but like when you have those moments of downtime, like actually get out to know people. Don't just sit in your room and try to go to bed or whatnot. Like, actually take some time and go learn about people and where they come from. And I mean, you might only see those people like 2 or 3 times a year, and that's just because like regional and national events.
Right.
But some of those people you meet are going to be lifelong friends that you're going to be on Facebook, Twitter, whatever it is. Just
right.
and then when you are in the same town, you're like, hey, I'm in town. Can I sleep on your couch?
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, absolutely.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. If you have opportunities to do that, or reach out to your local state associations and see if you can travel to do different events. I know I've had several reach out to me in Kansas, and we'll do everything we can to put some money and resources towards that, because those are great opportunities to get outside your comfort zone potentially, but to meet new people. And you're exactly right. I think that's when I was referee coaching at regionals this summer, I said, listen, the most important thing you're going to do with this crew right here is to get to know each other.
Absolutely.
Like, more important than killing the games, although we want you to kill the game. We want you to take a moment, especially with the way regionals was set up this year, where you work both games together.
Yeah.
Don't miss the opportunity to make a human connection.
Right.
That's what's just so beautiful. So, well, let's talk about memorable moments along the way. We've already kind of highlighted some of those. Are there others? I know it's always, when you get together, it's always fun to share war stories. So I guess this is one of those opportunities.
This is one of those
right?
moments.
I'm sure there's plenty, and it's usually, for me, I usually go blank when people ask me this question. So if you're there, there's no judgment.
No, I got one. So I told you guys at the beginning of the podcast that I'm not comfortable on the line. And Tatum and I were working this youth league game back in Chicago, and we were in the process of switching us like 3 games back to back. Our legs were dead at the end of it. But during one of the things, Tatum was in the middle, and I was AR2, and it had just rained the morning of or the night before. And in passing, the person who was AR2 before and is now AR1 was like, hey, there's a puddle over there, be careful.
Oh, no.
So literally 2 minutes in the game, long ball over the top. It's like attacker, defender going one-on-one into the penalty area. And I'm running, and now a foul happens right at the top of the penalty area. And right as I pop my flag, my feet are still going, and whoosh. And my head is the first thing to hit the grass, and big splash. Parents behind me are like, whoo, like, what just happened?
I bet.
It was literally like Shamu diving in the water. Like, it was just massive waves. And I look over, I'm still on the ground, just completely covered in water. Tatum's blowing the whistle and literally like spits the whistle out of her mouth, busting out laughing. Like, this player,
I saw the whole thing like in slow-mo.
This player that committed the foul easily should have gotten a yellow or red card, but like, we lost track of the player because everyone was laughing at me and everything. It was so funny, and I was just like, oh man, this really sucks. Like, yes, my pride was hurt a little bit. I was okay physically. I was a little wet, but I was just looking at her and just busting out laughing.
The kid comes up to me and was like, hey Rev, isn't that like a yellow card? And I was like, yeah, but did you see that guy? And as I'm pointing at Zachary on the ground, so.
That is fantastic. Again, if you didn't hear earlier, Zach is 6'9". So this is not just like a little kind of shoot. No, this was, this is like a 3-game production. It was a production. Yes. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. This is also a reason to record all games, no matter the level, because this video would be priceless. Oh my gosh. That's amazing. I wish I would have seen that. And I'm glad you're okay. I guess we'll just add that piece. Since your head broke your fall. Gosh. So yeah. Anything else that stands out over the years? Or?
Yeah.
I'll always remember this moment. I went up to Chicago for my birthday weekend. And Zachary happened to get us into this like indoor tournament that was like a 1-day thing. And I don't know how he broke me into it. And I was on a field by myself. It was like this like huge indoor stadium, but like, was it 7v7?
Yeah, it's typical indoor.
Yeah, well, it's 7v7, but like on a 4v4 field. So it was a small one. And I was all by myself. I had never done indoor soccer before, so I didn't really know like the specific rules, but he told me, he's like, hey, you can't be afraid of your yellow cards and red cards. Like, make sure you use them. I'm like, okay. Well, there was a dog so situation, which I'm like, yes, red card. He'll be so proud of me. I gave a red card. Well, apparently the rule's a little different in indoor, that it's a yellow card, not a red card.
Blue card, but yeah.
Or a blue card.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Still don't do indoor that much. It's that one time. But, yeah, so the players and the coaches and the fans weren't very happy with me with this red card, and I had security around me.
Oh,
and,
my.
yeah.
So what she hasn't, or what she's admitted to tell you guys, is this is a cash prize Hispanic indoor tournament
Oh, nice.
in the south side of Chicago.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah.
that's
That makes
the,
it even worse
that's
when you
the,
wrote me into that.
that's the setting. So when she walks in, she is the only blonde white female
Yeah.
referee.
Yeah.
Like standing out like a sore thumb. And
Handing out red cards.
handing out red cards. And I think, like, from a referee developmental standpoint, seeing that was fantastic.
Oh, sure.
Even though it was 100% wrong, that confidence level was amazing.
Yeah.
Because that's been something that I've been working with her since I've like met her in terms of refereeing, was just that confidence level.
Sure.
And you're going to make some of your biggest mistakes. Like when I work with younger referees, I tell them, I go, don't worry about putting your flag up. Just anything you see, put a flag up. I want them to get confident. I want them to make those decisions, even if they're 100% wrong. We can fix that.
Right.
But like with her, like we can fix that. We can learn that rule. We can learn a different way of handling that situation. But getting you to that point of actually dealing with it, I think is huge. So even though we had armed security around her and escorting her off the field.
He's running over. I feel someone touch me on the shoulder. I'm like about to freak out, and just him's like, what's going on over here? And I was like, what do you mean what's going on? Like, I have like all these security people around me. But we took a little time out for it.
Match got abandoned.
Okay.
Okay, it's all right.
Yep.
But then she came back and what was it, the semifinal?
Yeah.
I got her to recompose, come back out and do the semifinal. She did fantastic.
There you go.
So it's one of those awesome moments that she walks out shaking like this, like.
I bet.
But it was growing experience for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Huge.
Well, and that's, if you're out there and you've had one of those moments, don't let that be the last moment you have refereeing.
No.
Don't go out because you got surrounded or whatever. Get back out there, because it's you can't let that. Don't let them win. Right.
Exactly.
I'm going to get back out there and do that. So yeah, it kind of begs the question too about development. Those experiences, I mean, that shaped you in some regards, right? There's confidence gained through that, and just composure, and even just realizing, hey, even if it is like the worst possible thing, right? I still got through it, right? Like there was still an ending to this, and we still had opportunities to move forward. What have been some of those developmental moments or experiences? I don't know if those come to mind for you guys, things that have been key catalyst things for you along the way.
For me, I had a what used to be called PDL. I had a PDL whistle back in the day. I think it's now USL 2. Is that?
I think so.
Yeah, that's the new one, right?
Yes, I'm getting a thumbs up from one of our tech people, the Brendan Sweet.
Phone it in, I guess. But I was very young at this point in terms of refereeing, and it was two very top teams, one from St. Louis and one from Chicago. And we had a goal, no goal line decision, and I thought it was a goal. My AR on that side said no goal, and the ball literally went 120 yards and ended up in the other side of the goal within 45, 50 seconds. So we have two teams who think they just scored. And so how I handled that situation was absolutely atrocious. It was very bad. I was being assessed. This was probably the highest level game I've ever gotten. It was like my point of my referee career at the time. And I absolutely got destroyed in the debrief, like absolutely torn to shreds. And from that moment on, I learned to no longer referee the game how I feel like other people want it to be refereed. More so on the assessor standpoint, because no matter what we do as officials, we are always going to not make everybody happy.
Yeah.
And after that, I had a referee coach who I would also call a friend. Basically, we went out and got dinner, and he was like, listen, this is what happened. Despite the debrief where you got torn to shreds, once you move on in your referee career and you stop worrying about making people happy, you're going to have so much more fun. And at the moment, that phrase really upset me.
Sure.
Because I was like, no, like, I want people to like me. I want to keep climbing this referee ladder, like, blah, 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 blah. And it took me a couple of years. But then once it clicked for me, I became a better referee. I had so much more fun doing it. And when I left the game stayed there. And I would come home, and that was it.
Yeah.
So, like, learnable, teachable moments, that was it.
Yeah.
And ever since then, have I had bad games? Absolutely. Yeah, I've had some nightmares. But have I ever felt like, oh my God, my career is going to end? No. Because there's another game.
Right. That's a great word.
Yeah.
That's great. Tim, do you have anything to add to that, or?
I feel like that was a pretty good example.
That was really good.
Hard to top that.
That is a high bar right there. Yeah. No, that's so good. So, one question I do like to ask a lot of folks we've had on the podcast is, knowing what you know now, okay, after years of experience, if you could go back and tell first month, first week, Tatum, first month, first week, Zach, what would you say to yourself, knowing what you know now?
I would say more just like be confident. Like, you know that mistakes are going to happen, and that's how you learn from it. So just go out there, do what you know, and if something doesn't go the right way or doesn't go the way you expect it, just come back out the next week and keep trying and learn and build on the week before.
Yeah. Yeah, I love so much in there that you said build on the week before. Don't let those moments pass where you can learn.
Yep.
Right. I think we talked about that in a previous episode with Jeff Swartzel about self-reflection, the importance of not letting those moments just pass you by.
Yeah.
You know, that's great. Zach?
Yeah, kind of just building on that. That's what I would think, especially to the younger generation, is don't let that 1 week where a parent or someone screams at you or a coach screams at you or a game gets out of hand, don't let that be your last game. I think there have been times in my referee career where I've been like, I'm done.
Yeah.
Hanging it up. And that's where you when you build those relationships, like we've built as referee family, right? Like everyone in here is a referee family, I would say. And that's where you call those people up and you're like, this is what happened. Like, I'm about done with it. And that's where you kind of lean on those people to be like, pick me back up pretty much.
Yeah.
You know, like get me back out on the field, get me going and get me in there again.
Yeah.
You know? But going back to what we said before about creating those relationships, you got to start from the very beginning.
Yeah.
So I think knowing what I know now about refereeing and how big this community is, I would almost challenge my younger self when I first started to be more outgoing and go see other people referee and learn who the big dogs are in the local park district.
Yeah.
You know, and learn from them, and when something goes wrong, like have them come watch your game.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I would say not to be afraid to reach out to people for help or to help watch your game and learn from that, because I know there's many of us in the Kansas referee community trying to help mentor and help excel those referees, the younger referees.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you reach out to a senior level official and they make you feel stupid, you contact the Chuck Complete podcast. We will hunt them down. Okay, maybe not like that, but that is if you're in Kansas and somebody does that to you, we definitely want to know. I know that's a legitimate fear. It's like, what's somebody going to say if I ask this question?
Right.
And I know for me, I can't recall any moments where somebody talked down to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there were maybe along the way, but majority of it is just like, hey, do you mind if I kind of pull you aside and ask this question, or go grab some coffee or go grab a dinner or something and just say, hey, can I float some things to you? They might seem like no-brainers, but for me, I need a refresher.
Right.
And I can't recount any times where somebody went, moron. They can think, and I'm sure plenty of people have thought that when I'm talking. But, you know, it's a testament to the community of people.
Yeah.
And it's not just Kansas or Chicago. You can find this all over the place.
Right.
So. Well, the one thing I didn't put this in our notes, but one thing I try to end my episodes with is like the last word. You guys get the last word. What's one thing couple things, whatever, that you think the Check Complete podcast needs to know, or you won't be able to sleep well tonight? I don't know if there's anything. I just want to give you the opportunity to end our discussion today.
Oh, wow. That's
Me?
all you.
I don't know. I feel like we've covered everything here.
We have. It's been a wonderful conversation. This has been awesome.
Man, I don't know if it's necessarily something that you guys need to know, but more just people like potentially watching this, especially the younger generation, is like just get involved.
Yeah.
And there's so many opportunities. I mean, I've only been here for 3 or 4 months, and I've been to one of your meetings for the Heartland stuff, and I'm planning on going tomorrow. It just get involved as much as possible with the referee community. Like really dive in, because I think the more you dive in, the lesser chance you're going to have of wanting to quit.
Yeah.
The more friends you're going to make. You're going to make more money.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the fun things about doing college games, once you get into, you make a good amount
Yeah.
of money. It's a lot of fun when you make more money.
That's right.
But just money aside, games aside, whatever it is, just the referee family. I think family is just the thing that you always just have to keep harping on. Is refereeing is not just a game.
Yeah.
It's not just a position. It's not just a check. It's a family. It's almost like a fraternity or a sorority.
Right.
You know, like it's something that you're wanting to create lifelong bonds with, and really just carry that throughout.
Yeah. Yeah. Very good.
Yep.
Anything to add?
Nope, I think that was pretty good.
That was pretty darn good. Tatum, Zach, thank you so much for your time.
Awesome.
Thanks,
It's been
Gordie.
wonderful
Thank
chatting
you.
with you. Yeah, we hope you guys enjoyed this conversation. We're going to take a quick break, and then we have more Check Complete podcast content coming right at you. The Check Complete podcast is brought to you in part by JF Consulting Tax Preparation and Bookkeeping. Taxes suck? We can help. Visit jfcokc.com. I'm excited to sit down virtually with a familiar face to the Check Complete podcast, Rich Grady, who was he was our episode 6 guest, which feels like forever ago, but it is awesome to see you again, Rich. Thanks for your time.
Oh, thanks for having me on, Gordie. It's nice to know that you guys have been around long enough now that you have repeat guests.
Yes, this is very.
Yes.
Yes. You might. You keep answering my emails, so you might become a regular. Yeah.
Awesome.
Rich is with us. Just a reminder of his background. He's the current NCAA soccer rules editor, former MLS FIFA referee, still referees a lot, still works in the MASL. I know you had a busy weekend this last weekend getting ready for the MASL season that's just around the corner. And then you're a high school history teacher and soccer coach. So you see all aspects of the game. And today our conversation is going to center around the concept of being successful in postseason soccer. So it's that time of year. I know for us in our area, the leaves are changing colors in the fall. So that's always exciting, not just from a aesthetics thing, but knowing that what comes with fall, late fall, comes postseason soccer, and everything's amped up, and the temperature might be dropping outside, but it's rising on the field, right? So you've been through quite a bit of postseason soccer in various capacities, right? As an official, as a coach, and in your role with the NCAA and the soccer side of things. So
Yeah.
let's just dive into that. What has been some of the keys to success for you as an official? Or, I mean, I'll just let you kind of run with that, and we'll see where the conversation goes.
So I think for officials, we have to be careful how we define success. If success is I get picked to go to the state final, or I get picked to go to the Final Four, or whatever that is, that's not always something we can control. So
Yeah.
I think recognizing how these games are conducted and what's at stake for both teams. When we say success, I tend to look at it within the window of that particular assignment.
Yeah.
Like, do I feel good about my performance? Do the teams feel like this was a fair performance? I mean, obviously you're going to have some things that people disagree with, but you want to make sure that within the context of that game, you've done the best you could. So I don't think we can worry a lot about, am I going to get the next assignment? Am I going to get the next game? I don't experience that as being particularly helpful. So I think it's, for me, it's always focus on the thing that you have. I think another thing is just if you're selected for a postseason game, you're picked for a reason.
Hmm.
Don't change what got you there.
Right.
We've had a number of situations. I've never been to the state finals in high school in Illinois as a referee. I've been there as a coach a couple of times. And I can tell you as a coach, what drives me crazy is they put all these protocols in place that changes things from what we do all year.
Mm.
We never have fourth officials in high school soccer. We have a fourth official for the state tournament. And then they start worrying about little things and they start enforcing rules that aren't actually rules because someone tells them, well, you have to do it this way.
Mm.
So, for example, my girls' team played in a state semifinal this past spring, and we gave up a goal 30 seconds into the semifinal.
Mm.
And as you can imagine, I'm not thrilled about that. And then I'm immediately brought back to earth because one of my players comes running over and says, Coach, I forgot my shin guards. So now I'm like, okay, I got to get her out of the game. And the fourth official, it's after a goal. The fourth official won't let me sub. He's telling me, like, you didn't have her here before. I said, well, that's not the rule. I said, after a goal, you can sub from the bench. Yeah, but we were told that they've got to check in early because the PA announcer. I said, I don't care about the PA announcer.
Right.
So the game don't change. That's your problem. It's not my problem.
Mm-hmm.
And he got so worked up about following the directives that he never actually noticed the player who was coming out didn't have any shin guards. So I did not get cautioned when by rule I should have been because my player did not have the required equipment.
Right.
So, I think you don't change stuff that you've done all year. I think another big thing is understanding what the tiebreaker rules are,
Mm-hmm.
and that they're all very different. High school rules are different from NCAA rules, which are different from what we would use if we were following FIFA laws of the game. And it's really, really important to understand what are the rules for the competition you're working. To give an example, NCAA rules do not have a reduce to equate because you're not
Mm-hmm.
required to have the players that were on the field at the end of the match. You designate 10 people to kick. You could have your goalkeeper as one of them. You could not have your goalkeeper, but you get to pick 10 kickers as a coach. So that's irrelevant of how many players you had on the field at the end of the match.
Mm-hmm.
So just understanding that kind of thing, I think, is really helpful because that's the one thing where we look at it, and if the officials mess that up on a rule, we're going to hear about that.
Right.
And I think the other thing is, and it connects with what I said before about don't change things, like don't go looking for stuff to call. Call what's there, but don't. We had a situation a couple of years ago in the NCAA tournament where there were some really, really tight decisions on goalkeepers stepping forward from their line on penalty kicks. And, even in a VAR environment at the pro level, they're saying, let's make sure that it's obvious. Same thing here. We don't have VAR in that environment, but we're not looking for, was the goalkeeper's heel a millimeter off the line kind of thing. So just do that. And I think another big thing is just doing your homework.
Mm-hmm.
So is this matchup a repeat from the regular season? Okay, if it is, then that you've got some history to check into. Is this two teams who've never played and now they're coming from maybe completely different areas and you've not, at least one of the teams you've never seen? Got some different research to do on what to expect going in.
Well, and I think with the accessibility of the internet, there's really no excuse almost at any level now to not do your homework, right? I mean, at the high school side of things, it used to be less accessible. I can Google something and find out stuff at the high school level. I mean, college, there's no excuse. High school level,
Right.
There's less and less of an excuse now for that.
Well, to give you an example, like in my coaching career, we used to, as the playoffs got closer, we would go scout somebody in person if there was a possibility that we would play them. And that was to, well, what are the restart plays like? And what are these things? Well, one of the big things that changed in high school sports in our area with COVID is everybody started streaming the games.
Right.
So there's no, you can find all that stuff out about now by looking at video that's publicly available. Which means the old concept of, our opponents for the next round here. Okay, maybe we're not going to run that restart play. We'll save that for the next game. Like, sorry, anything you do is out there and people know about it.
Right.
You just have to assume that people are going to know those things. So it really comes down to either you come up with something you haven't done before, or you just execute whatever it is you do, and you focus on executing it properly and don't worry about trying to fool people.
Right. Follow up to not changing things. I would agree with that 100%, especially sticking with what got you to where you are. I think there's at least this concept, and maybe we see it on TV, that it seems, and I could be reading into this wrong, but especially at the MLS level, it seems like officials are a little bit more apt to try to manage misconduct, especially hard challenges. And it seems like there might be an attempt to go, okay, we're less, and I could be totally wrong, and if I am, just tell me, but it seems like there might be this thought of, okay, let's see if we can manage and make sure that when we're giving cautions and things, that should be stone cold. If it's a second yellow, can we manage it? If not, it's got to be a stone cold second caution, red card. Is there any, I don't know, is that just subconscious thought, or is there any validity to that? I'm curious your thoughts.
I think what you have people at all levels making sure is that if you're going to make a mistake as a referee, it's much better for the game for that mistake to be, okay, there's something I failed to call, and I called something that wasn't there. So I think you're right as a general observation. Do people tend to be a little more lenient in playoff matches? Sure. We can debate whether or not that's ideal. I think it is the reality.
Right.
But I think as an official, you get much more controversy over if you give a debatable second yellow.
Right.
And if you don't give a debatable second yellow.
Right.
I mean, we still have to deal with stuff that's there. And I've been on both ends of that. I've done both, but I do think as a general rule, we want to really focus on making sure that what we call is something that needs to be called.
Right. Right. And in the world of video, right, it's something that's going to be clear cut. We see this, you look at that and you go, well, his hands were tied, her hands were tied, right? That's a clear cut decision, and it looks stone cold.
A really good example was the RSL Austin MLS playoff match. Players on a caution and then slides in and wipes out the goalkeeper.
Yeah. Yes.
Referee gives it as a second yellow, and the camera cuts to the RSL bench, and they're not mad at the referee, they're mad at their player.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing that in an ideal world you look at and say, okay, that's not on the referee. That's
right.
You guys know what the standards are, and you didn't meet the standards, and sorry, but something's got to be done.
Right. And that's not looking for something. That's just dealing with what the game gives you. And in that situation, it was just, okay, well, we rewarded the behavior. So yeah, that's huge. So what we've got here so far is kind of, I love the redefining success idea and what that looks like for postseason. And then some just practical things you mentioned. Don't change what got you there. Be aware of the rules, the tiebreaker procedures, which there's been changes, right? Especially apropos on the NCAA side this year. Don't go looking for stuff, and do your homework. Any other thoughts that come to your mind?
I think the other thing is just understand with personality and maybe how things are going to go at the end of a game.
Mm.
That when you're in the postseason environment, somebody's season is over after the game.
Yeah.
So understand that things could happen there one way or another. I mean, read the temperature of the match. If you know that one team is really heated at the end of the game, I would not advise standing there waiting for a traditional handshake line, because they're not all going to come up to you and say, "Great job, ref." Remove yourself from that situation if you can. And also understanding it's kind of like a stereotype in high school. Like, you have I'm a senior, it's my last game, and we're losing, so I'm going to go out in a blaze of glory. Like, we still have to protect the players. And if you have somebody who is clearly showing signs of they're going to do something like that, then you need to deal with it, and don't give someone a pass to the point that it's going to endanger the opposing team because you have somebody who just wants to be goofy.
Yeah. Good stuff. I'm sure there's plenty more, but this gives us a great framework to work for as we enter these more heated contests. It's exciting, I would say, to go back to your original point, be thankful for whatever opportunities arise in these next few weeks of, officials that are watching this, and just enjoy those moments, enjoy the crews that you get to work with. It's an exciting time of year, so take each game and don't look past it. Just kind of like players, right? I'm sure you probably have that same conversation with your players and coaching staff to go, this is the next most important thing for me. So, Rich, thanks for your time. I know you and I both wish the best to all of the officials that are working these games and players and coaches. We're a fan of the game and hope that everyone has a safe and fun postseason experience. So thanks for your time, Rich. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks, Gordie.
The Check Complete podcast is brought to you in part by JF Consulting Tax Preparation and Bookkeeping. Taxes suck, we can help. Visit jfcokc.com. Thank you so much for engaging with the Check Complete podcast, episode 17, here with our wonderful co-hosts for today, Tatum and Zach Richter. We really appreciate you engaging with the podcast, whether it was the audio only option or on YouTube. Be sure to, if you haven't already, follow us on Instagram and Twitter at check_complete. Facebook, Check Complete Podcast. And if you're not already watching on YouTube, check us out. Like and subscribe. Like all the videos and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Where should they subscribe?
Right here.
Subscribe right there. Press that to subscribe. So you can stay in the loop with all of the new content that the Check Complete Podcast team puts out. If there is, for any reason, some negative, if there's something that didn't sit right with you, maybe some negative, you can, we'll hear it. We'll hear from you. We just ask that you write it on the back of a Yapalong 5000 8-user complete set, complete with World Cup headsets, and mail it to us. So if you could do that, we'll hear from you. Yeah. Thank you so much for engaging with the Check Complete podcast. This has been episode 17 with the Richters. Thank you guys for being here today.
Thanks
Thanks,
for having
Gordie.
us.
It's been wonderful. We hope you stay safe, and we'll see you soon for episode number 18. Take care.